Welcome dear student and Jai Swaminarayan. In the previous video, we were discuss about the salt and the chemicals from the common salt. Right? In the previous video, we were discuss about chemicals from the salt. Sodium chloride is a common salt which we use in our food. Right? It is derived from the seawater. Rock salt is a brown color large crystal. This is mined like a coal. So here the common salt is a raw material for the many chemicals which we use in our daily life. For example, sodium hydroxide, right? Bleaching powder, baking soda, washing soda, plaster of Paris, right? In this, we two of these, right? Sodium hydroxide and the bleaching powder, we were discussed in the previous video. So dear student, up till now you have not seen the previous video. See the previous video for the preparation and the use of the sodium hydroxide, for the preparation and the use of the bleaching powder CaOCl2, calcium oxygen chloride. Sodium hydroxide is a NaOH. So how we can prepare a sodium hydroxide with the process of the chlor-alkali process, and what is the use of the product obtained in the chlor-alkali process, right? Bleaching powder, how we can prepare a bleaching powder, right? And what are the use of the sodium hydroxide and the bleaching powder? See the previous video for the preparation and the use of the first two chemicals. Now in this video we will discuss the third chemical preparation and the use of the baking soda, washing soda and the plaster of Paris, right? So dear student, let us start with the baking soda. The chemical name of the baking soda is a sodium hydrogen carbonate, and the chemical formula of the baking soda is a NaHCO3, sodium hydrogen carbonate, right? So how we can prepare a baking soda? So before using a preparation of the baking soda, the baking soda is commonly used in our kitchen for making a tasty crispy pakoras, right? Sometimes it is added for the faster cooking, right? So baking soda which we used in our kitchen, right? We can say that ખાવાનો સોડા, જે સોડા આપણે કિચનની અંદર યુઝ કરીએ છીએ, right, for the tasty and the crispy pakoras, right, for the faster cooking, these are the baking soda. And the chemical name of the baking soda is a sodium hydrogen carbonate. Chemical formula of the baking soda is a NaHCO3, right? So how we prepare a baking soda? So baking soda is prepared when the sodium chloride NaCl, which is the common salt, is the aqueous solution of the sodium chloride NaCl plus H2O plus carbon dioxide and ammonia react with each other. We get the ammonium chloride NH4Cl and NaHCO3 sodium hydrogen carbonate. This sodium hydrogen carbonate is called the baking soda. So when the sodium chloride, aqueous solution of the sodium chloride, react with the carbon dioxide and the ammonia, we get the ammonium chloride NH4Cl and the sodium hydrogen carbonate. Sodium hydrogen carbonate is called the baking soda, right? So understand the preparation. When the aqueous solution of the sodium chloride, that means the NaCl plus H2O react with the carbon dioxide CO2 and the ammonia NH3, we get the ammonium chloride NH4Cl and NaHCO3 sodium hydrogen carbonate, right? So this is the our baking soda, sodium hydrogen carbonate. On heating, a NaHCO3 produces Na2CO3 sodium carbonate, water and the carbon dioxide. So when we heat a baking soda NaHCO3 sodium hydrogen carbonate, we get a sodium carbonate Na2CO3, water H2O and the CO2 gas. Now what is the use of this baking soda? The baking soda is used for making a baking powder. Baking powder is a mixture of the baking soda and the tartaric acid. So when the baking powder is heated or mixed with the water, CO2 is produced which causes the bread and the cake to rise, making them a soft and the spongy, right? So for the preparation of the bread, to make a bread and the cake, we use a baking powder, right? So when the baking powder is heated, CO2 is produced, and due to this CO2 the cake and the bread is making a soft and the spongy, right? Second use of the baking soda is it is used as a ingredient in the anti-acid, right? When we take a when our when the acidity produced in our body, right, we take a anti-acid like a eno, and in this eno we use a baking soda as a ingredients in the anti-acid, right? So use in the soda acid, fire extinguisher, right, fire safety. In the fire safety, baking soda is also used. In the soda the gas will release, right? So this soda is a baking soda, right? So what are the use of the baking soda? Clear, dear student? Baking soda is used for making a baking powder. Baking powder is used. What is the baking powder? Baking powder is a mixture of the baking soda and the tetric acid. Now when the baking powder is heated, right, CO2 gas will be released, and the CO2 gas, because of this CO2 gas, the bread and cake making a soft and the sponge, right? So baking soda is also used in the ingredients in the anti-acid. Baking soda is used in the soda acid and the fire extinguisher, right? So now next chemical is a washing soda, Dovano soda, right? How we can prepare a washing soda? So preparation of the washing soda, chemical formula of the washing soda is a Na2CO3, which we obtain from the baking soda, right? So when the baking soda is heated, we obtain the sodium carbonate Na2CO3 10H2O. So the chemical formula of the washing soda is Na2CO3 10H2O. What is the meaning of this 10H2O? The meaning of this 10H2O is, in the washing soda, crystal of the washing soda, there are 10 molecules of the water, that we will discuss later on after this, right? So how we prepare the washing soda? What is the chemical name of the washing soda? Chemical name of the washing soda is a sodium carbonate, right? And with the 10 molecules of the water in a one crystal of the sodium carbonate, right? So sodium carbonate can be obtained by heating a baking soda, right? Sodium carbonate is obtained by heating a baking soda. In the previous slide we were discussed sodium carbonate NaHCO3, sodium hydrogen carbonate, baking soda is heated, we get a sodium carbonate Na2CO3 and H2O and CO2, right? So this sodium carbonate, with the recrystallization of this sodium carbonate, gives the washing soda. It is also a basic salt. The sodium carbonate is a basic salt. So in the sodium carbonate Na2CO3, we add a 10 molecules of the H2O, we get the washing soda Na2CO3 10H2O. What is the meaning of this 10H2O? In the crystal of the sodium carbonate, 10 molecules of the water. Now dear student, what is the use of the washing soda? It is used in the glass, soap and the paper industry. Washing soda is used in a glass, soap and the paper industries. Washing soda, it is used in the manufacture of the sodium compound such as a borax powder, right? We use a washing soda. The washing soda is used for the cleaning agent for the domestic purpose. In our home, we use the washing soda for the cleaning of the clothes, right? Or other purpose, cleaning of the other domestic purpose. Washing soda is used for removing a permanent hardness of the water, right? We use a washing soda for removing a permanent hardness of the water. So dear student, understand the preparation and the use of the baking soda and the washing soda. Now dear student, we discuss about what is the meaning of this 10H2O. What is the meaning of this recrystallization of the any crystal, right? So let us understand with the help of the activity. Are the crystals of the salt really dry, or is there any water molecules in the crystal, right? Let us understand with the help of the activity number 2.15. Heat a few crystal of the copper sulphate in a dry boiling tube. So take this type of the test tube, and in this test tube put crystal of the copper sulphate, that is a one type of the dry salt, right, and heat them with the help of the burner. What is the color of the copper sulphate after heating? Is there any change in the color of the copper sulphate, right? Do you notice water droplets in the boiling tube? You will get the water droplets in the boiling tube. Yes, you will get the water droplets in the boiling tube. So we can say that copper sulphate, the crystal of the copper sulphate has some amount of the water molecules. Now add a 2-3 drop of the water on the same of the copper sulphate obtained after heating, right? Now when add a 2 or 3 drop of the water, what happen? Is the blue color of the copper sulphate restored or not? So here when we heat a copper sulphate, the color of the copper sulphate becomes a white, right? Now after that this water molecules is appearing. So answer of this first question, what is the color of the copper sulphate after heating, right? Heat the few crystal of the copper sulphate in the dry boiling tube, right? So what is the color of the copper sulphate after heating? So when we heat a copper sulphate, right, we get the water droplet on the test tube and the color of the copper sulphate becomes a white, right? Now add a 2-3 drop of the water on the sample of the copper sulphate obtained after heating. What do you observe? Is the blue color of the copper sulphate restored? Yes, the blue color of the copper sulphate is restored. So dear student, from this activity we can say that the crystal of the salt are not really dry. It has some amount of the water molecules, right? So here the copper sulphate crystal, which seems to be dry, contains the water of crystallization. In this all the salt has some content of the water for the crystallization. When we heat the crystal, this water is removed and the salt turns white, right? The salt becomes so white. So here the copper sulphate is, after heating, the copper color of the copper sulphate becomes a white. Now if you moisten the crystal again with the water, you will find that the blue color of the crystal reappear. So when we add a 2 or 3 drop of the water in the copper sulphate after heating, we get a blue color of the crystal reappear. So dear student, understand from this activity we can say that all the crystals of the salt which seems to be a dry contains the water molecules for the crystallization. For example, let us see what is the water of the crystallization. Water of the crystallization is the fixed number of the water molecules present in the one formula unit of the salt. So in the one molecules of the salt, fixed number of the water molecules are used for the crystallization of the solid, right? For example, if we take a 5 water molecules are present in the one formula of the copper sulphate. So the chemical formula of the hydrated copper sulphate is a CuSO4 dot 5H2O. What is the meaning of? In the one molecules, in the one crystal of the CuSO4 copper sulphate, there are 5 water molecules are required for the crystallization of the copper sulphate, right? Similarly, in the previous slide we were discussed about the sodium carbonate crystal requires the 10 molecules of the water for the crystallization. So on the heating of the sodium hydrogen carbonate, we obtain the sodium carbonate, and recrystallization of the sodium carbonate with the 10 water molecules, we get the washing soda, right? So what is the chemical formula of the washing soda? The chemical formula of the washing soda Na2CO3 dot 10H2O. That means in the crystal of the sodium carbonate there are 10 water molecules are used for the crystallization of the sodium carbonate. Similarly, CaSO4 calcium sulphate has dot 2H2O calcium sulphate. For the recrystallization of the calcium sulphate, if we use a 2 water molecules is the calcium hydrate calcium sulphate, right? CaSO4 dot 2H2O, right? So understand what is the recrystallization of the salt. The recrystallization of the salt, that means the rearrangement of the molecules of the salt with the presence of the water molecules, right? Now dear student, we discuss the last point, last chemical from the salt, that is the plaster of Paris. Now how the plaster of Paris is prepared? What is the preparation of the plaster of Paris? So on heating a gypsum, what is the gypsum? Gypsum is the calcium sulphate with the half molecules of the water in a unit crystal of the calcium sulphate. So what is the chemical formula of the gypsum? On heating a gypsum at a 373 Kelvin, it becomes a CaSO4 half H2O is the plaster of Paris, right? So when what is the chemical formula of the gypsum? The chemical formula of the gypsum is a CaSO4 dot half H2O, and on heating this, right, gypsum and adding a half molecules of the water, 1.5 molecules of the water, we get the plaster of Paris. So what is the plaster of Paris? Chemical formula of the plaster of Paris, CaSO4 dot twice H2O. So plaster of Paris is used as a plaster for the fractured bone, right? So when the plaster of Paris is mixed with the water, it changes to the gypsum, right? So if the gypsum is heated, we get the plaster of Paris, and when the plaster of Paris is mixed with the water, we get the gypsum back, right? So what is the use of the plaster of Paris? You know that the doctor used the plaster of Paris for supporting the fractured bone, right? For making the toys, materials, for the decoration, we use the plaster of Paris, right? For making a surface smooth, we also use the plaster of Paris. So dear student, this point is very important. This all the chemicals starting from the sodium hydroxide, NaOH, right, is very important for the exam also. So here these chemicals from the common salt, right? All the chemicals from the common salt, sodium hydroxide, bleaching powder, baking soda, washing soda, and plaster of Paris. Preparation and the use of this all the chemicals are very important for the exam.